a few upcoming talks. Um, on Remember, we meet every second Monday of each month. So our next meeting is on August 11, and we will continue our conversation about the water energy nexus, but we'll focus specifically on the water demand by AI data centers in Texas, a very pressing issue. And please save the date on August 11th at 6:30 p.m., same way we're meeting today, virtually, and attend that discussion. Then on September 8th, we will hear about coastal groundwater flooding by Professor Dr. Dorina Morgulay from the Center of Water Supply Studies at Texas A&M University in Corpus Christi. And that's another great opportunity. And looking far, far ahead of us, October 13th, we still are deciding on the topic, but please save those dates and join us and participate in our discussions. They're very informative and interesting. Okay. So the Water for People and the Environment Committee is a volunteer-led effort. So we have a group of volunteers who are in charge of this committee. But why do we exist? We exist to create a network of shared concerns and concerns about water. We want to unite Texans on the water topic. We want Texans fighting the Marvin Nichols Reservoir care about the lacking salinity standards in Corpus Christi and expanded seawater desalination along the coast. And we want people in Corpus Christi care about the development of not so inefficient water strategies like building reservoirs, right? We want to create this network. And by joining this committee, and I believe the link is probably in the chat already, where you can sign up and stay in the loop of our events. By joining this committee, you will benefit from learning more about water issues that face Texas. Then you can be connected with experts. You have a concern, you voice it, or you send me an email or any volunteer leaders an email, and we can connect you with the right people, networking, of course, and a place to belong. We are all here today because we are concerned about water. It's great to be part of the larger community of Texans and work together. So we try to help Texas communities to advocate, to become stronger advocates for water issues in their communities. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and sign up for our committee. And at this point, I will pass it on to Dave.
Thanks, Evgenia. Yeah, appreciate it. We're all gathering here in very difficult time for not just Central Texans, really for all Texans and a lot of people around the country. It's definitely been one of the harder weeks that I think many of us have experienced as Texans. And for me personally, just as an organizer, environmentalist, for the past, I don't know, about 20 years or so, I've never seen anything like it. I grew up in El Paso. I was talking with my dad last night about all the different flash floods that we grew up around, and the sheer power of Mother Nature roaring down the arroyos of the Franklin Mountains. Just imagining that hitting homes, hitting campers, hitting RVs, hitting children, elders, is horrific. We still hold a lot of that. So we're having our conversation today, holding all of that. And I want to acknowledge that. If we can go to the next slide, please. We're real broken up about our buddy, our friend, leader, Ron Duke, who's still missing. Ron, is a member of many organizations, Guadalupe Riverkeepers in particular. Ron, had a place right on the Guadalupe in an outdoors shop right across the road, where took care of people, taught them about the land and the river, advocated against pipelines or developments that would potentially increase flooding. And he's just one of hundreds, sadly, that was swept away, as far as we know. He's not been found. And we want to pray. I do, as you know, multi-generational Texan. We have a very special relationship with these rivers and the land. And so for all those people and all the families that have been affected, we hold them in our hearts. I invite you all. Sorry to get broken up. I can't talk about this, but I invite you all to share just for a brief moment. We're going to have an important conversation tonight. How are you feeling about the past week, 12 days, whatever it's been? One or two words. Feel free to drop it in the chat if you want to share it vocally. Yeah, it is heartbreaking. Thank you, Joshua. Anybody mad?
I'll jump in. I'm mad. I'm mad. Our state isn't taking climate change seriously, and people's lives are literally at stake. And I'm just feeling real torn up about it too.
Thank you, Stefania. Good to have you here. Roy?
I know the area out there. I know people out there. And I've seen the videos, etc. And it's just, I don't even recognize it. And I swing between just terrible sadness and then seething anger. And it's not just Kerrville. I grew up in
Right.
Western Williamson County and lived right on the creek out there that flooded. The whole nameless community. Those are my old stomping grounds, and I feel bad because I know I should be doing something, but I can't make myself go out there. I can't. I
Yeah.
can't. I just I load up to go and then I don't. I just can't do it. And that's a terribly sad statement, but that's this week. That was last week. That's this week. There are weeks ahead.
Yes, sir.
I will get out there eventually.
Yes, sir. Well, Roy, we go way back, and moments like this got to bring us together. So we're here for you. And take one more comment from my friend Annalisa, please, and then I'll move us on.
Yeah, I got to tell y'all because just last week I was asked to look at a plat for a new development that's on the Pedernales. It was 49 new homes and the wastewater treatment plant in the floodplain. And I mean, until we stop allowing development in the floodplain, we are never going to be able to prevent tragedies like this. So GIA is going to be really working to advocate during the special session that we don't just have emergency warning systems and emergency management, but that we have the state at least allow county governments to adopt policies that stop this.
Y'all, Annalisa's been a leader in this work alongside Ron and many others for quite a while. It's good to have you here, and we'll be with you shoulder to shoulder at the Capitol starting next week, which is a good segue. But as we talk about the session, I want you all to know everything you're feeling is extremely powerful and valid, whether you were directly impacted or, as Roy said, I want to help, but I just can't. Stefania is in Houston. Flooding has happened in the Valley just a couple of months ago. Homes, communities destroyed. Doesn't get the rapid attention as other places. It's happened in Houston. It's happened in North Texas. It's happened all over the place. As Stefania said, it is absolutely unacceptable that our state leaders allow hundreds and hundreds of Texans to die as a result of worsening weather, extreme weather, and the climate change crisis. Whether it's Winter Storm Uri, Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Beryl, wildfires, derechos, or other floods, it's unacceptable. And so the time for accountability is coming. It'll start next week in earnest with many of us at the Capitol. We still want to encourage people to get out and support as they can. Please reach out. We'll be soliciting some testimonials from you all, however you're feeling. We just want you to get it out. We want legislators to hear it, and we'll try to help connect you with some other frontline mutual aid groups that are gathering resources and helping people in need. I apologize for going a little bit long, Margaret and Evgenia, but I think we needed to acknowledge this moment. So let's talk briefly about the session, and then we'll go to our main presentation. Thanks, you all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dave, for leading us through this important, very tough discussion. Appreciate you all sharing your thoughts and experiences, but also wanted to invite you to take a look. Like we were just done with the legislative session, right? So let's take a look at these, just a few highlights. Like I would call them missed opportunities. This is not an exhaustive list. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea. And you can see more resources in the chat, and I encourage you to share to check those resources out. One of the bills that was the relevant bills that was filed this legislative session and never made it into law is House Bill 13. It was filed by Representative Ken King. I believe his district is somewhere in the Panhandle. That would have improved disaster warning systems. And this bill was, it passed the House but died in the Senate. And what's interesting that Representative Wes Verdell from Kerrville, the area that was most impacted by the recent floods, voted against the bill, but now is openly regretting his decision. So it's likely that the special session that begins next Monday, during this special session, we will see this bill refiled. And we will support it at the Sierra Club the way we supported HB 13 during the legislative session earlier this year. Then I also encourage you to check the state flood plan, because remember last year in August when the state flood plan was approved, we were celebrating. This is a big milestone that was achieved in Texas, a disaster-prone state. And thankfully right now we have the state flood plan, which also includes about 10 pages of recommendations on flood mitigation. And those are science-backed recommendations, scientifically proven, right? But unfortunately, legislators didn't seem to be interested enough in these recommendations. So I encourage you to check the state flood plan, which is a very long document, but it's on my to-do list for the end of this week. I will dive in deep to prepare for the special session and read it in more detail, kind of more attentively. And one last thing, remember water did get funding this year. We had $2.5 billion appropriated from House Bill 500, which was supplemental budget bill, and then starting 2027, water will get $1 billion a year for 20 years. But then we compare that amount to the estimated need of $54.5 billion for flood mitigation infrastructure. And the conclusion is this is not enough. Texas, we need to invest more in resilient Texas. This little box here in blue, it's just a screenshot from the Texas flood plan. And you could see here that it does estimate this $54.5 billion for flood mitigation. And as I mentioned, the special session is coming up next Monday. I see Rita is up to date on the bills, and I think Rita said that 89 bills were filed. As of this morning, there were like 50 bills filed, but thanks, Rita, for that information because I didn't check in the evening. Basically, the session begins on July 21st, which is next Monday. Filing of the bills has started today, and the governor decides what goes on the special sessions agenda. And prompted by the recent events, we have 4 items related to flood management. Again, our legislators are being reactive and not proactive. I've been reading about the response of Governor Abbott to to the flood events in Texas recently, and I'm seeing lots of criticism. You can see some links in the chat on the statements. The first statement that he made referencing football game, and today I read an article again, the Guardian article that's shared in the chat, where they say that adding these items to the agenda is a good step, but it's not enough, because by adding these items, the governor provided a space to debate as opposed to guarantee to all Texans that Texas will be more resilient, that we will see more investment in flood mitigation strategies. The governor didn't say that. He just offered these items for debate on the special session. So that's one of the also criticism that I've been reading. But I shared all those articles with you. Check them out. And I hope you will find them insightful as well. That's all I wanted to share as far as the special session. And remember that caring for water means caring for people. And whether it's providing water access to economically disadvantaged communities, whether it's helping communities with flood impacts, it's always caring for water means caring for people. And it's also, we cannot care for water without understanding the important systems that sustain us. And that includes the water energy interrelationships that we're going to be talking about today. And that was my attempt for a smooth transition from our previous discussion to this topic. I hope it's appreciated. Thank you, thank you. And we have Dr. Margaret Cook with us today from Houston Advanced Research Center. Margaret, I will open the floor to you right now, and we'll stop sharing so you can share your screen. Stop share. I hope I stopped. Sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Margaret.
Yeah, I'm looking for Margaret. Do you see her?
Oh,
A lot of folks on.
oh, no. Did we lose our speaker? Let's give her a couple of minutes. Don't even know how to troubleshoot in this case.
That's fine. I think if you can check your email and drop her a note, that'd be fine. But for everybody attending while we're looking for her, I'd be curious what comes to mind when you think of the water energy nexus? Yeah, I think of power plants. Anybody else?
Well, yeah, when I was on a committee and it was talking about in-stream flows, and I learned that, like in San Antonio Water Systems is the biggest energy user, and CPS is the biggest water user.
Yeah,
City Public
CPS.
Service, yeah.
Yeah. Also, wastewater treatment plant facilities use a ton of energy to clean up that water. Hydrogen in the chat, data centers, absolutely, Fred. Chip manufacturing, fracking, power plants produce water. We got a good group here. Y'all are too smart. Did we find Margaret?
I think she just joined, but I'm not seeing her again. Lost. Okay.
Oh yeah, I see her. There you go.
Losing power from the storm is very familiar. I'm literally keeping my fingers crossed right now because it's thundering outside.
Margaret, if you're able to, I made you co-host. You're welcome to come off mute and share anything you need.
Sure. I'm on
I think we're breaking up a bit.
hopefully it'll be easier to hear me.
There we go. Okay. Was Margaret breaking up for y'all?
Yeah.
Okay. While we get that sorted out, let's keep going. I mean, and there's some great stuff here in the chat. We've got oil and gas desal. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Energy to make water for industrial desalination. I hope to learn more about the crypto and data centers. I don't know a lot about it.
In Austin, we're still pushing hard for reuse. We have water, we just use it and then get rid of it. We need to push on developers to have an envelope purple pipe and reuse the water that we have. I'm gonna stop talking or I'm gonna get choked up. Sorry.
It's a tough time, man. It's okay. I'll give you a call. We'll talk. We'll go for a walk. Absolutely. Water usage, just more broadly. Thank you, Molly. Let's do a check-in with Margaret here. You feeling okay?
It hasn't cut out for a little bit. So can you hear me a little bit now?
It's a bit
It's still a little choppy, but what do you think, Evgenia?
Okay.
we can maybe try try moving forward. Maybe it'll get better. I am always optimistic. So
Let's do it.
Okay. I can also try to call in if that'll help with the voice. And then if the picture freezes, we at least have a little bit more time with that.
Yeah. And right now you sound pretty good. So let's
Okay.
give it a go.
I have 2 backup batteries. One of them is powering the Wi-Fi now, so that should be good.
I'm so sorry.
Well, no, it's a common enough occurrence that I have 2 backup batteries.
Yeah.
Anyway, life in the Houston area. All right, Water Energy Nexus. So it sounds like y'all are relatively familiar with the Water Energy Nexus based on the conversation that I jumped back into. But that generally refers to how energy and water are related. So when we want to extract or produce or generate energy, we often need water. And to move, heat, treat, pump, etc., water, we need energy. So getting water to the place that we want it and the kind of water that we want it often requires that energy. And we have some trends that affect the water energy nexus. So population drives our energy and water use. We also have droughts in Texas, and we have higher temperatures. And of course, we can have too much water and too little water, and that can affect our energy use as well. And then decarbonization, electrification, and expansion are also driving that. So with our population increase, we're seeing higher consumption in a lot of our urban areas. And that's increasing over time. We're seeing both the energy and water increase, and then getting to see that cascading increase as we increase our energy use. We can see increases in water use that are associated with that, and vice versa. And then we experience frequent drought. This is, I think, earlier this year, probably January, where this drought picture is from. But in general, a lot of our state is drought prone. Even my flood prone area of the state can be pretty drought prone sometimes. So we see that stress, and then we have to address that with moving water to where it may be needed, using water differently to try to get access to that, and that can affect our energy and water use. And then finally, we see that increasing energy use that is associated with increasing water use as well. We use water throughout our energy system, and we use energy throughout our water system. This is a big old mega chart that tries to outline where those connections are. So you can see these blue lines and the sort of red-orange part, red-orange being the energy side and the blue being the blue side, being the water side, I mean. And then the connections here where the blue lines are going into the red, that's the water use for this sector. So Where we're seeing a whole lot of energy is in the extraction of oil and gas and coal, and we do have some water use associated with that. And then we have some wastewater associated with that as well. And then that's generally injected or discharged. And then, whoops, we also have water use for electricity generation. We have a whole lot of water use for the cooling associated with that. And so we have some water moving through that part of the chart as well. And we will see that water use frequently for cooling our coal, natural gas, nuclear, and petroleum facilities, in cooling towers most often lately. But some of our older power plants are once through cooling facilities. So we'll see them pull the water in and then inject it back out to the environment hotter. And these cooling towers use quite a bit less water, but then they consume more because they evaporate it. So when you see these big old stacks at nuclear facilities, frequently have the biggest ones, this is water being evaporated because it's cooling. So there's a steam cycle inside the power plant that generates the electricity, and then a different loop for the water so that it can evaporate hotter. And then we also have water use in different sectors as well. That's that cooling here. And then these slides are backwards, I apologize. Our water and energy nexus for fuels, we frequently have extraction and production of these fuels that requires water, and then we'll have a wastewater associated with it, and some potentially water recycling and reuse associated with that as well. We also see water use for transporting these fuels sometimes, particularly coal on barges, for example. And then finally, we use energy for water. We see some of these lines coming here, these yellow lines in the public water supply, some lines into wastewater treatment. Those are parts of the water sector that require energy, and 12% of our US energy consumption is for direct water and steam services, and that can include that public water supply, so treating our water, distributing our water, pumping the water, but it also usually it also includes heating our water, so for example, heating it at home or in businesses, using water for chilling buildings, things like that. That's a good amount of the energy use for water. We see a lot of wasted energy in our aging infrastructure and our water losses. And grid insecurity, we know very well in Texas, leads to water insecurity, for example, from Winter Storm Uri. This is an example of a low energy pump at a wastewater facility in San Antonio. So they're moving the water with an Archimedes screw. So it's very old school, but also very low energy. So we have a good amount of challenges ahead in the water energy nexus. I'm gonna go through 8 of them and dig into these in particular. The hydrogen industry is expanding in Texas. There's a good amount of federal funding going towards that, and even some tax credits that are still alive after the reconciliation process, meant to drive the hydrogen industry. So we could see a good amount of growth from that. And hydrogen is generally a water intensive process, either because the water is used to make the hydrogen, because it's splitting a water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen, or because it's part of a steam process that reforms methane into hydrogen, steam reformation. And I'll go over that a little bit more in the next slide. We also may see some geothermal expansion. The Department of Energy, Secretary of Energy is a big fan of geothermal. So are some of our state policymakers. So we could see a good amount of push towards that in the future. And there's some support for that in the legislature. Geothermal as a power source generally uses that steam cycle that I mentioned before. So it would be on par with those, say, natural gas combined cycle power plants that use cooling towers in that graphic that I showed earlier. You can also use geothermal on a smaller scale, not the same technology, but in your home or in a building to keep the temperature at a constant level. It's a ground source heat pump. And if you want to see an example of that, you can come tour the Hark building. We have 33 wells in the parking lot that run through and help us maintain the temperature of the building. And it's a very low energy system to keep us very energy efficient. We're an Energy Star 99% rated building, partially because of that system. So that is not a water intensive technology. It is also not a power technology. It's an HVAC technology, but it is grouped in this geothermal section here. And then carbon management, including carbon capture and storage, can be water intensive, particularly on that carbon capture side, with growing interest in that. And again, the same thing as hydrogen, where we have tax credits and government funding going towards this. We did see the federal government nix a handful of carbon management projects in Texas, but there is still that tax credit and some funding going towards that, particularly advanced oil recovery. So we could see some water intensive activity associated with that. And then finally, I put new in brackets here because it's all water, but seawater and brackish water desalination and produced water reuse are energy intensive technologies that were part of that water funding at the legislature that was mentioned earlier in the conversation. And so we could see a good amount of energy increase with the emphasis on those technologies. So just digging into that a little bit more, I know I just kind of talked at you, but here's a bit of a chart. There are different types of hydrogen. So green hydrogen would be using solar or wind, some type of clean energy to split hydrogen, and we split water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen using that water and electricity as the inputs. And you do have a good amount of water use from that. Comparing that to gray hydrogen, which is that steam process that I mentioned, where steam and methane are your main inputs, you'll get outputs of hydrogen and then carbon dioxide. So you get greenhouse gases from that, that they would have to capture if they want to make that net zero emissions. The water demand for that is about half of green hydrogen. But then if you capture that carbon in blue hydrogen, then it becomes 1.5, potentially 2 to 3 times more than green hydrogen. So blue hydrogen is very water intensive comparatively. And then we also have carbon capture, where we have a good amount of water use for different types of carbon capture, pre-combustion, post-combustion, direct air capture, and then bioenergy, which would be using trees or some other bioenergy feedstock to generate electricity, and then capturing the carbon, sort of trying to get that net zero input from that is way more water because of that, those extra processes associated with that. So it depends on what we're talking about with the type of carbon capture to tell us how much water we may need for certain processes. And then finally, digging in on that new water, I mentioned already, desalination can be very energy intensive. If you then desalinate and move that water across the state, that's not what's happening in this map. I was just kind of trying to show where it could be coming from. So if you desalinate on the coast and then move to maybe Central Texas or further, that's going to be very energy intensive because both of these types of methods are energy intensive. So the well field that's just a few counties over from San Antonio is apparently increasing their residents' water bills by 13% to get that water. And then according to their information, and then brackish water, which would be your salty water, but inland likely or from a groundwater source. Would be 2 to 7 times more energy than your conventional water treatment, where seawater would be 5 to 12 times more. And then that desalination plus transferring that water across the state could be, up to 23 times more energy, depending on where you're moving it to. This example is from Houston to Dallas. Whoa. Just a point to add at the end, water reuse, which one of the folks attending was mentioning in Austin, for example, is a lower energy demand on treatment, can save that energy, can save water in the community as well, helps you increase what's available to you, even though it's not new to you, you're reusing it. And so you get the best of both worlds there. Some additional challenges that I'm not going to dig as much into, environmental flows, making sure that we do have enough water in our rivers and we're not extracting everything is a big issue. Even if we do need the energy, we also need to make sure that the environment is sustained while we're doing that. Artificial intelligence, the AI boom, crypto, data centers. You're going to get a whole nother presentation on that coming up from one of my colleagues, and we'll dig into that. But there is a good amount of water already going towards that. And the big increase in energy that they're expecting will drive a big increase in water because of the amount of power that's used and then the cooling requirements of that power, but also the water to cool the data center itself. And that depends on the technology of the data center and the technology of the cooling. Severe weather, we know, is an impact to our energy and water systems. We know that extreme cold, extreme heat, flooding, or drought are all issues that can cause stress to both energy and water. And because they're connected, they stress each other cyclically. And then reducing demand in the energy and water sectors is a good way for us to reduce that impact that we could have, that cascading impact, but it also gets that cascading benefit. When you reduce your water use, you're actually reducing energy use. When you reduce your energy use, you're actually reducing water use. And so it becomes this, to repeat myself, cascading win from that. So diversifying and expanding our energy system will increase our impact on our water supply, and we could see more competing uses from power plants, increasing population, increasing mining, data centers, and our existing environmental and human needs. We need to keep up with trying to address those issues. I'm also going to include some specific issues for Texas as case studies at the end here, and then open up for questions. So some examples of where the water energy nexus can impact us pretty specifically in Texas. We do have a good amount of small water systems that can have issues in their water supply, issues because of their aging infrastructure. And if they have unstable line pressure or power outages, that can cause us to need to do boil water notices. And we have frequent boil water notices throughout the state because of these types of issues. So if you can't maintain the pressure in the water line, then the time it takes for the chlorine from the treatment plant to get to homes is increased, and we can't guarantee that there's not going to be bacteria in that water line. And that means that they now have to issue a boil water notice. We'd also have issues where the power has gone out at the water treatment plant or the wastewater treatment plant, and then it's not able to treat at the level that it's supposed to. Any of those could cause us to need to issue a boil water notice. And a boil water notice in a power outage means that people very likely don't have access to water at all. If they can't boil it, then they can't treat it for themselves, and then they don't have access to that drinking water. So that can cause, again, those cascading issues. And residents may need to purchase alternative clean water in that time, and they may or may not have access to the ability to purchase that. We also have emerging contaminants in our systems from different sources, but it could be pesticides, Teflon, dental floss, cleaning products. Those can contain PFAS, but we also have other emerging contaminants like microplastics. And those things, if we are going to treat them in our municipal treatment systems, require additional technologies that may increase the energy intensity of that water treatment. They can increase the costs on the treatment system, and that has its own impacts to the affordability of the system. That can mean water is no longer affordable for the customers in that system. So that's also an issue. But energy is one piece of that puzzle there. And that is the end of the case studies. I'd like to open it up to any questions or comments or concerns that y'all might have on the Water Energy Nexus.
Thank you so much, Margaret. That was very insightful. And again, sorry for delaying a little bit, but it was a very important introduction that we had, important discussion. But right now that we learned more about the Water Energy Nexus from our guest speaker, do we have any questions? You may feel free to unmute and ask your question or raise your hand. We have great discussion in the chat, by the way.
I am reviewing the chat. I couldn't see it as we were going. I love, I saw earlier how many people are from Corpus. I'm also from Corpus. And so keeping track of y'all's water situation.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so I have a question. Just could we review just traditional energy generation? What's the relative water use between a coal facility and a natural gas facility and a combined cycle natural gas facility? Do you have those numbers close at hand?
You know, I don't, but I can pull
And
them
it's
up very
okay if you
quickly.
don't. I mean, I obviously don't either. So
I can pull them up very quickly. I don't know them off the top of my head. Let me grab them for you and I'll come back in a second.
Mhm.
But we
And
can
the
move on
reason
to
I asked
another
that question is I consider I see a lot of opportunity in just choosing how we deploy the existing capacity, energy generation capacity we have, because the market as designed assigns relatively low value to water and no value to emissions. But most of the time we have a variety of power plants that we could choose to deploy differently depending on how we weight those criteria relative to what we do now as common practice.
I think that's a good point. And there are trade-offs between different technologies. For example, nuclear is very low emissions, but very high water. But then those small modular nuclear reactors that they always say are coming on the horizon are supposed to be a lot less water use. So we could see some benefits there. Generally, I pull up the numbers in a moment. We're going to see much higher water use from a nuclear facility, and then coal, and then natural gas steam cycle is about in that level. All of those steam facilities are going to be a lot higher water use than something that uses all of those steam facilities are going to be a lot higher than a combined cycle power plant. And that's because a combined cycle is two different cycles. That's the combined part. It's a steam cycle and a Brayton, a gas cycle. And so it uses less because it's able to take advantage of the efficiency of both cycles. And one of them does not require water and the other one does. So if you've got a natural gas combined cycle facility with a cooling tower, it's going to be far less water intensive than a natural gas power plant that's a steam cycle, even if it's using a cooling tower, but it's going to be way less water intensive than something that does not use a cooling tower that uses once through cooling.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Feel free to unmute and ask if that makes it easier.
Well, if I
Yes,
may, I'm sorry, was someone else wanting to?
go ahead, Roy. Go ahead. This is John Tate, but go ahead.
Okay, John, good to see you again, buddy.
Hi.
One of the things we're kicking around here in Austin is the idea of using a perched aquifer east or south of Austin to send water and store it in the aquifer and then partially treat it and then bring it back as we go through evaporation like we did recently. Our main water supply, Lake Travis, was at 43%. 2 weeks ago. It's over 80% now. But anyway, when you look at the energy water nexus between the amount of energy that it's going to take to send it out there and then to bring it back, do you think aquifer storage is a good way to address water issues, Margaret?
I think it depends on a few things. So I wouldn't give it a blanket approval. Aquifer storage certainly reduces the evaporation that you could experience in surface water storage. It also would reduce, for example, an impact to flooding that could happen if you've got a lot of water already stored in a lake and then there's a rain event, which can happen in the area that I'm in. That's happened pretty recently. So from that perspective, it's a good idea. It does take some time to get the water underground, so we can't necessarily use it for something that would need a frequent storage use. And then you do want to, Texas water policy makes it a bit difficult in that when water is stored underground, generally anybody with land over that water would have access to it. So San Antonio's solution to that is to get essentially get the surface water rights to all of the land that they're injecting into. And that is not necessarily accessible to every water system. And they could potentially regionalize an aquifer storage project and have multiple water systems get their surface water rights together. That's an option, but it does make things a little bit difficult. And I know that the landowners in areas of the state that are good candidates for aquifer storage and recovery are not necessarily big fans of that because of the potential for, I guess, water profiting in their area, a decent amount of water exporting, the potential to, I guess, increase water marketing in the area could have also a economic impact on land prices in the area in a negative way that could cause some issues. So there are externalities associated with it that you need to address. And I think it's possible to address those externalities. It's just making sure that you do try to do that is how you can be a good neighbor in an ASR project.
Thank you. John, you had a question too.
Yes. I put a little bit of it in the chat, but I think I don't know how much of this is still going on in Texas, but mining certainly has the potential to contaminate a lot of water. And I guess what my question is I mean, we know it's a bad problem locally, but is the water contaminated by mining large in terms of our total water supply or total fresh water availability?
The water that's contaminated by the mining, I don't
Yes,
think
I'm
it's
thinking especially of coal and uranium mining. I think both have contaminated certainly water in the area where the mining was going on.
so.
Right,
I would
John.
I would just say that when we talk about percentages of water impacts, you'll see this in the data center presentation too, and it reminds me of hydraulic fracturing generally. When you look at things in aggregate, it's hard to tell that there's a huge local impact. So even if I would say no, it's not a large percent of our water that's contaminated by energy, but it could be a large percentage of a community's water. It could be all of their water, and that is absolutely worth addressing, no matter what the percentage is at the state level. But it looks like, Craig, is yours a question or a comment on that?
Oh,
I think maybe Roy was saying something else, but that was my question. So thank you. And part of my thinking is, we don't want to decide. I think we shouldn't decide to make use of, or if we have alternatives, make use of an energy technology that's going to contaminate somebody else's water either. Not just our own, but anybody's.
I was just agreeing with you, John.
Okay.
Appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah.
great.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
We've been looking into in the Austin area and then further west, where karst landscapes, and our aquifers originally charged through recharge features, usually caves. But what has happened over time, particularly in Austin, as Austin developed, is people fill in these caves. People fall down in them, cattle fall down in them, and a lot of them will put trash in and rocks and everything. So, I don't know if any studies have been done on this, but it seems to some of us that an intelligent idea might be to clear out some of these old recharge features that have been plugged up, which will actually allow our aquifers to recharge more quickly. And I just wonder if people are going to doubt how much good that would do. So the question is, have any studies ever been done about this?
I haven't seen anything, but I can keep an eye out and see if I can get back to you if I do.
Okay, well, because we're interested in that.
Thanks. Annalisa, could you please hold on a second? I want to pull up Molly's question from the chat a few minutes earlier. Molly, are you aware you can unmute? I just don't remember what the discussion was about at the time when you asked the question. Sorry.
Yes, I can unmute. So you mean about getting this, all this really good information? I kind of feel like we are talking to people like we all know. And hang on a second. We all know. And it's like what the development just seems to, are you talking about that comment?
Yes.
Overdevelopment. It's like there doesn't seem to be anybody who wants to stop it. And so if we can educate ourselves and we all pretty much know, and they don't seem, what can we do to make them slow down? Even slow down a little bit. Because it doesn't seem to, it just seems to increase. And now that it's exponential with the data center thing.
I don't have a good answer for you there on what we can do to slow down growth. There's not a lot of mechanisms for that. And when cities do try to take their own route, often the legislature steps in to keep them from doing that. So I'm thinking of the bag ban and I'm thinking of the fracking ban. And that is a mechanism that I'd like to see more cities take advantage of, not not necessarily to curb growth, but to curb the water use. So Corpus, once upon a time, did a good thing and encouraged their refineries to reduce their water use, and they got them to reduce it down by 30% of what it previously was with water restrictions. Now their policy is, while they're in a drought, while they're under drought restrictions, is to give industry a pass on those drought restrictions by paying what I think is $0.25 per 1,000 gallons extra as a fee, which is so cheap for water. So they're doing the opposite of what they've done in the past, and they're in a worse water condition than they've ever been previously. And so that's a bit off topic of what I was trying to say, but in the past, they were able to use city their power as a city as a place that those industries wanted to be to encourage water efficiency in an industry that then continued throughout other facilities of the same type throughout the Gulf Coast. So they got refineries across the Gulf Coast to reduce their water use because of their policies. And that's what I'd like to see more of, and less of this, okay, we want their business to be in our community, so we're going to give them a pass on our water supplies.
I mean, that's the thing. People aren't paying the real cost. That is, they're not. We're not, I mean, none of us are, because none of us really put it, when there's complaints about higher water costs because there's not enough. We were talking about a limited resource, and good. I'm glad that Corpus was able to do that instead of just giving more tax incentives and that kind of thing.
Oh, I think that was 30 years ago. Right now, not the case.
Oh, oops.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. Thank you, Margaret. If we can all give a round of applause to Margaret. I mean, whoa, like, I'm going to come back and watch this recording. We'll send out the slides. I'll pass it back to Evgenia to close, but, thank you all for being here today. And I just want to say, the root cause is almost the same as the root solution. It's taken a long time. One of the core principles of environmental justice is that there's no quick fix to solving the problems that we're dealing with. And it took decades to get us where we are today. And it's horrific, the consequences that we're watching unfold. I mean, I'm solidly middle-aged. I've got a 7-year-old that I have to think about how do I prepare her to advocate and organize for the world that she wants to see. We might know a lot of the right answers. We might know a lot of the solutions. And I just will always be honest with you. It's never going to be enough until we have more people to outweigh the influence of organized money, of special interests that raid and control the Capitol and the governor's office, Texas Water Development Board, Public Utility Commission, every single agency down the line that's been captured for almost 30 years in our state. So get out and talk to people, build relationships. What's happening right now and unfolding in the whole country, let's go help, donate, give supplies, get to meet people. We have to deconstruct all of the siloed and the silos and separations that have been put in place to keep us apart, and help people see that the people that have allowed this to happen really don't look out for us. They don't have our well-being at their core interest. And we're here to help you do that. So I'll leave you with that and pass it back to Evgenia so we can wrap it up.
Thank you, Dave, for that wrap up. We weren't able to ask all questions, and Annalisa, my apologies. I was trying to have the questions in the order they were received, so feel free to email me your question. And Margaret, if you don't mind, I have just looks like 2 or 3 unanswered questions. May I forward them to you and receive answers in an email form from you?
Absolutely. Later? I can also put my email in the chat. Feel free to stuff directly.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And for those you know me, a follow-up email is coming, probably very long, again, with all the links that have been shared in the chat today and all other important information about the upcoming meeting as well. Thank you again, Margaret, for this presentation. Thank you all for participating, for being here. Despite such tough time, you were here, you were present, you showed up. Greatly, greatly appreciate that. And let's continue to be here for one another. Let's support each other. And thanks again. We'll see you in August. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody,
Evgenia.
very
Yeah.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, y'all.
Gracias.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry we didn't get to sing happy birthday to you. Next time. Take care, everybody.